via the vagina to reach the ovidus. So the middle piece is the one that generates the energy for it to swim towards the egg. Then the last part of the sperm cell is the long tail. This is located at the posterior end of the sperm cell, and it is the one that propels the sperm. So the long tail propels the sperm. The egg contains the nucleus, which also has the acrosome that breaks the edge of the egg membrane for fertilization to occur. Then the middle piece generates energy for the sperm cell to swim towards the egg. Then the long tail propels the sperm. Now we move on to talk about the structure and the function of the ovum. The ovum is the mature, immotile female reproductive cell. Unlike the sperm cell that moves, I was talking about propelling it and swimming. The egg does not swim, so it is immotile, it doesn't move like that. So the ovum or the egg cell is the mature, immotile female reproductive cell that is produced in the ovary of an animal. So you find the ovary producing the egg. The egg is surrounded by the inner plasma membrane and the outer one called the vitelline membrane. The ovum consists of a large central haploid nucleus that is surrounded by dense cytoplasm containing a yolk. So just like you have a yolk in the egg of a chicken or hen that you eat, you have yolk also in the egg of man or in the woman. The yolk is the one that provides the source of nourishment for the embryo in the early stages of development. If the ovum is fertilized by the sperm, it develops into a new individual of the same species. So when fertilization occurs for the egg, a new individual of the same species, for instance, if it is in a goat, then a new goat individual is formed. If it is in a man, then a new man is formed. That's the meaning of that statement. Now, talking about fertilization, eggs produced by the ovary are shed into the oviduct from where they travel to the uterus. Then, during copulation, the spermatozoa from the male are discharged into the vagina. So, during sexual intercourse now, the spermatozoa, that's the sperm cell, are discharged from the male into the vagina of the female. Then, by the means of their tail, I was talking about the tail of the sperm cell, the other side, that it is the one that propels the sperm cell. It propels it through the cervix into the uterus and up to the fallopian tube. So I said the egg is found, the ovary, so the ovary is in the ovidus, so, and the egg is inside the ovary. So the sperm will have to move to the fallopian tube. I said fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube, or what we call the fallopian tube or the oviduct. That's where fertilization occurs. So the sperm cell will have to be propelled to the fallopian tube, where the nucleus of the sperm cell that is contained in the head of the sperm cell fuses with the nucleus of the ovum and it forms a zygote. The fertilized ovum now, after it is being fertilized, passes into the uterus, that's the womb, for further development, and that is where the zygote will fully develop into a new individual. The fertilized ovum is attached to the lining of the uterus in a process called implantation. So the fertilized ovum is attached by a method called implantation. Implantation helps to prevent menstrual period and ovulation from occurring by action of sex hormone. When fertilization does not take place, there is a rupture. That egg cell will rupture. That is, it will be destroyed, and it is what will flow down as the menstrual flow. But when fertilization when fertilization occurs and implantation takes place in the uterus, there is an action of hormone that happens that prevents another ovulation. That is, there will be no release of egg. No egg will be in the fallopian tube until the one that is in the uterus has been born. So that's the physiology of man like that. It doesn't happen that there is one baby developing and then there is another fertilization that is taking place the next day or something. No. Once there is a zygote in the womb, no other fertilization can take place because the body of the female does not produce another egg. Now, in man, if the two ovaries release simultaneously, in man, you have 2 ovaries. That is the man, the higher animal now, not specifically the male species, the man generally. So we have 2 oviducts, that is 2 fallopian tubes on both sides. Then either of the fallopian tube can release egg, whether the right or the left. But sometimes you discover that both fallopian tubes release egg, and sometimes maybe when copulation or intercourse occurs, both eggs are fertilized at the same time. So the resultants of that fertilization will result in twins, but those twins are non-identical. They are not identical because they are different eggs, or we call them fraternal twins. Fraternal twins or non-identical twins. They are also called dizygotic twins because they are different eggs that produces them. I know you must have seen people that say they are twins and you wonder how they don't even look alike at all. That is what happened. They are fertilized from different eggs that were produced at the same time. But sometimes you discover that a single ovum was released and was fertilized, but at the early stage of development of that fertilized ovum, it divides into 2. After fertilization, in the early stages of development, that fertilized zygote divides into 2, and that is when you have identical twins that you really can differentiate them. You met one now and you are wondering, is it you or the other person? You are not sure because it's the same egg and the same sperm that fertilized them, but now eventually divided into 2. So they are made up of the same, even though eventually when you get closer to them, you will discover their differences. But because they are made, that foundation, they are made of the same ovum and sperm, so they are very, very identical. So we call those ones identical twins. The other ones that are produced from 2 different eggs and 2 different sperm, we call them fraternal, non-identical, or dizygotic twins. The discharge of the ova from an ovary into the oviduct is called ovulation. And I said it the other time that on a monthly basis or every 28 days, an ovum, that is an egg, is released in the ovary, and that is called ovulation. So the woman releases an egg from one of the ovaries. I said there are 2 ovaries and 2 fallopian tubes at both sides. So the woman releases eggs from one every 28 days. Then in man, if the ovum, that is the human species now, in human, if the ovum released is not fertilized, the lining of the uterus gradually degenerates. That is, there is no sexual intercourse in those days that the ovum is in the ovary, that it was released there. There is no sexual intercourse, or fertilization does not just occur. You know, sometimes sexual intercourse may occur and fertilization will not occur. So when fertilization does not occur, the lining of the uterus, the lining of the womb now, gradually degenerates and are discharged from the body. So this process takes about 3 to 5 days. It is called menstruation when the egg is not fertilized. So it's the lining of the wall is degenerated and it flows out in the form of blood. Then the whole process of formation of ovum in the Graafian follicle and the final breakdown and discharge of the uterine lining, if fertilization does not occur in about 20 to 30 days, is known as menstrual cycle. That cycle, after 20 to 30 days, there is no the process that occurs that fertilization does not occur, then the uterus lining degenerates. It's called menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is controlled by the gynecologic hormone secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. You know, when we were talking about the endocrine gland, I said that the pituitary gland is the master gland, so it controls every other activity in the body. You see pituitary gland also occurring here in fertilization. So the pituitary gland is the one that controls the secretion of the hormone, and they are called the follicle stimulating hormone, that is the FSH. And examples of the follicle stimulating hormone, we have the estrogen and the androgen. Estrogen stimulates the ripening of the ovarian follicle and thus it hastens ovulation. That is, it hastens the release of egg in the female body. Then the androgen hastens the formation of sperm in the testes. So androgen in the male, estrogen in the female. So androgen hastens the formation of sperms in the testes of the male. Then a man, now the male species, can go on producing sperm until the age of about 70. But a woman stops ovulating. You know, in both man and the woman, there is cycle. The man produces sperm, the woman produces egg. But a man can keep on producing sperm until about the age of 70. But a woman stops, some produce sperm, some men, even more than that. So it depends on the individual. But a woman stops ovulating at about the age of 45 when she reaches menopause. That is, no more egg is being released throughout her lifetime. So, and since there is no egg, fertilization cannot occur. So a woman stops producing egg around the age of 45, while a man stops producing sperm around the age of 70. Now, the development of the embryo. The zygote divides into two halves, that is after fertilization has occurred. Each half goes on to divide mitotically to form a holosphere of cells called the blastocyst, and it later forms the embryo. The division of the zygote is called cleavage. The embryo is implanted in the wall of the uterus, from which it obtains its nourishment. As the embryo develops, the placenta is formed. So what are the functions of the placenta? The placenta anchors the embryo in the uterus of the mother's womb. So it's the one that holds the baby in the womb of the mother. Then the placenta convey dissolved oxygen, water, amino acid, glucose, hormones, and salt from the mother's blood to the embryo's body. So it's like the one that helps the baby to get dissolved oxygen, water, amino acid, and necessary food materials from the blood of the mother into the body of the embryo. Then another function of the placenta is that it removes excretory waste like urea, salt, carbon dioxide from the embryo's blood.